Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. It's Friday night, but we don't have quite the normal docket for you tonight. As you can see, we do in fact have the Dead or Alive 1.11 release. We have our new Phobies. We have some of the new maps. We have some new deals. And we also have a new episode of the Face Your Fears podcast. Welcome back, everyone. It's been a little bit of a hiatus, but I'm, of course, joined by my co-host, Karst, who I'm going to turn it over to momentarily. But before we get into everything, we do have to do the disclaimer at the beginning. I'm part of the content affiliate program. The Phobies team gives me coffee for producing Phobies content. Karst, you are part of the community team, but how you doing, Karst?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on again. Yep, I am the lead mentor of the Phobies mentor team. It is our job to help new players with onboarding and help them answer difficult questions about how to experience Phobies to its fullest, and also to help them play better, because people who play better probably tend to stick around the game longer and have fewer frustrated experiences.
Exactly. Getting your butt handed to you is not necessarily... Most people will tolerate it for a while. Most people are, I've found, and it's easy to be like, oh, well, people in general are just awful. But I do find that most people are willing to put up with some level of, look, I know I'm new. I know I'm going to get my butt kicked. So let's...
The statistic I'll always remember was when Gears of War came out, the first one. The developers of that game learned an important lesson. They had said that for every person who went into online multiplayer, if they lost their first match, there was a 90% chance they would never play that mode again.
Yeah, I could definitely see that being true.
So, one thing Phobies does that's so great, I think, is it does start you off against bots. I remember when I first started playing, I thought, wow, this game is just filled with morons, because when you play against the bots,
yeah.
They stand their phobies on the lava for no apparent reason, fail to capture panic points, and I was just like, wow, I am going to be a king in this game.
Yeah.
And job well done, devs, for making me feel so special and bright.
It's true. Now, we've talked before, and without digressing too far, we've talked before about other issues with that particular model, but we have a lot of other things to cover, so we'll save that one for a recap another day. So let me switch scenes here. And chat was pointing out that Karst is coming a little bit quiet. As you may have noticed that I had the volume control up, so I've maxed Karst out. We'll see. We'll see how this does. Let me know if everything is still a little off. We'll play it by ear. The bots were a great idea. Yeah, absolutely. Chat's pointing that out as well. I definitely agree with that. So,
and they need to add the bots for higher level arena too, because there are arena players who, once they get to like 3,800 rating, they're winning like 8 minutes a match.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's definitely something that's come up before. I think we even talked about it maybe on the last episode. I'm not sure, but it's something worth considering, because there's a lot of solutions. I'm sure that would be part of a solution, whatever it happens to be.
Mm-hmm.
But let's jump in, Karst. We'll start with the Phobies, move to maps, and then talk about the starter deal at the end, because I know you wanted to make sure that we had some time to discuss that. Now, our goal is to try and keep this under 90 minutes. We'll see how that goes. But starting with the Phobies. So I don't know if you're looking at the screen at the moment, Karst, but we have Sulky. You are? Okay, good. So we have Sulky up first. Now, I don't want to go through and read the description of everything. People have eyes. They can see the guy that's on screen. This is obviously our halfy remodel, repaint, repalette swap, whatever you want to call it. And I'm glad they reuse this mechanic from Grimes, because it just seems like it's low-hanging fruit, right?
Yep.
Now, do you actually like this thing? Have you seen it in action? Have you gotten an opportunity, or did you open it?
Yeah, I have it. I got it. So first, like, its stats. So, it's a mirror of Grimes. Grimes is a 4-key. This is the 3-key Grimes. You lose 100 health, 100 damage, and 50 bonus damage per kill. And you don't get the bypass movement in exchange for going down 1 key. So I think my first impression on this was this. It was, this guy is definitely balanced. That makes sense to go down by those values for one key.
For sure.
And just like Grimes, we're not going to see Sulky at all
Yeah,
because it's relative to it.
I do
But
distinctly remember a time when everybody was terrified of Grimes. Like, oh my God, this thing is broken and it's just going to destroy the game and blah, blah, blah. And then it's just like, yeah. Then people discovered Beauty and Gonzo and Boss. And then we hit the full disclosure update. And like, nobody cares about Grimes. You'll occasionally get somebody complaining about it because, hey, you're new to the game and you get bodied because you feed the machine. But
right.
I do think this guy, losing the burrow movement is annoying, but it's not the end of the world. I've always personally look at Phobies whenever the cost is lower as better. Like baseline,
Yes.
If you cost more, you really need to justify it in a geometric or exponential way from the cheaper cost. So my initial reaction is this guy's better than Grimes. Whether
That's actually how I feel.
What was that?
That's actually how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
I've surprised myself because I've tried using it a few times, and so it's not that Grimes is bad, right? It's that 4 keys is something that you have to stock up for in a small map, so he's inconvenient to play, and you have to try and get 4 keys of value from him. So you have to prep for him and be in a situation you can get value, and that's hard to come to. Because you're always getting 3 keys every turn, you can always play Sulky on tempo.
Right.
And what I've found that means is, and I've watched a lot of matches since the update, and I've played Sulky a few times, and my experience is it's much easier to find a turn where I can say my opponent has to kill something here, and I will be able to kill it with Sulky next turn. Otherwise, they fall behind.
Right.
Therefore, I know I can get value from Sulky.
Makes sense. So that leads me to 2 questions, since you'd said that you both played with it and a number of watched a bunch of games with it. How many kills do you think where this guy is like, okay, now this has quote unquote taken over the game? It's a significant enough threat where you've gotten enough value. Is it after the first kill? Do you need 5 kills before it matters? Or it's another niche player?
I don't think it ever. So I think this is like part of the Grimes issue too, which is like people play Grimes and they want it to carry, but it's a 4 key, and 4 keys don't carry. And I think Sulky doesn't carry either. What I view Grimes and Sulky as is if you can get 1 kill with them, then they are slightly overstated with their boost.
Yeah, 450 damage 3 key is pretty significant. Admittedly,
yeah, exactly.
Melee, and like that's. The day we see a ranged Phobie with this ability might be the day that it becomes a problem.
Right. And so once you get that attack boost, now you can trade up with it easier. And so it becomes like a better exchange piece. And for Sulky, he's like once you get 1 boost, without any boosts, he's pretty bad. Once he gets 1 boost, now he's pretty stocky, and he has some pretty good damage on him. So you can trade in pretty well, and he's going to tank for your team a bit. So I think once you get 1 kill on him, now you've got a nice trading piece. If you get 2, I actually saw one. I think it was Juggernaut who got it to over 1,000 damage total in a match against Fidelia. So it was 2 Son of All Fear's 3 ranked players.
That's wild.
Or people who hit that rank regularly.
Yeah.
Or maybe Juggernaut hits like twice Son of Fears too. But still, point is they're pretty decent players.
Yeah.
And with careful placement, he was able to capitalize on this pretty efficiently. It was on Pluto.
Law of averages, it was going to happen eventually, but like, given those circumstances, that's still pretty impressive. But that does lead me, since you've been observing games as well as playing it, to the next question, which is, and I'm going to ask this for every Phobie, how good do you feel the animations are? Do you think that this guy looks cool?
I am not super observant on these things, but doesn't he basically just have half these animations, except for the kill animation is different? Or am I wrong?
Spoiler alert, I haven't seen this guy at all yet. I literally have not. I went looking, and I asked in my Discord, like, who has games with the Phobies? And the people pointed some people out, and I'm like, but they only showed off like 1 new Phobie. So I had to go and track down these images because I was going to cut them out of the client because we haven't been provided the art assets yet. Chat's saying the attack is different. Everything else is the same. That
Okay, so
sounds, that
I'll say
tracks.
this: when I saw the attack animation, it felt new to me by vibes. But like I said, I'm not someone who super pays attention to that kind of
Fair.
stuff. When he kills, he does like you're a fighting game player, so he
Yeah.
does like a Shoryuken. He stays
Oh, that's pretty
grounded.
cool.
He does this like grounded like uppercut that looks pretty cool with his claw.
Okay.
Um, that struck out to me as being like, oh, that's really satisfying to see him do.
Fair enough. Yeah, this guy seems pretty interesting at the very least. Like, I agree with you. I think he could be a reasonable niche player strictly due to the cost, where, like you said, he gets one kill, and now, yeah, he's probably not ever getting a second one in most reasonable games, but he's a significant enough threat that, hey, I'll send him in, and your opponent has to respect it. They can't pretend it's halfy and just ignore it.
Right. I think there's a good comparison here between Sulky and Halfy in the
Mhm.
sense that the right way to play Halfy is in scenarios where your opponent says, if I attack this, I'm in trouble. If I don't attack this, I fall behind. And
Yeah.
Sulky kind of does the same thing where you play him in a turn where your opponent either says, either I'm giving Sulky a free kill, so he's buffed up, or I'm pulling back and therefore I'm falling behind and losing tempo.
Yeah. You got to give him that dilemma so that way you can keep pressuring your opponent, advancing your board state, etc. So I think we can put Sulky in the can for now. Let's move on to Hexy, which has generated a lot of buzz even before we knew what it did because people all immediately started clenching or crapping their pants. I don't know. Maybe I don't know how you would do both, but either way, people were very concerned about a potential new stabby, and it's kind of a new stabby, but not really because of the way the stat distribution works out. But its witchcraft
Right.
applies instead of damage for anybody who's watching but not looking at it for some reason. It's a significant part of the screen, so you should see it. But if you're not, its witchcraft replaces Stabby's damage reflect with a power down, which hypothetically puts this guy a la Tiny Tim into the 3,000 sort of HP range. I'm probably hyperbolizing there, but my big concern, and you let me know if you share the same concern or others, Karst, is that, and again, I didn't see this one in client like actually functioning, but I'm assuming the very first hit is not going to get depowered. It's not like it's preemptively depowering. So as a result, it's taking full damage that first time.
Yeah, so it sorry, I got distracted by Air Cake typing in chat.
Yeah,
What
I
that
was just looking
last
at that. Apparently, Eric Cake is the one who renamed the ability. Or you named the ability. Nice.
Yeah, it's witchcraft.
It's true.
I like the Hexy Sexy playoff. I like how he looks like a Deadpool assassin kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like I really love the way guys looks. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
what
I
was
do
that
like
last
how
thing
he
you said?
looks. But yeah, I don't know. So the damage is lower than Stabby, even before you
Right.
consider the reflect. The HP is higher, and the virtual HP is higher. And you're gonna have to forgive me because my sinuses are, I think the Sudafed is wearing off, and so is the ibuprofen because my sinuses are suddenly starting to kick in. My allergy's been killing me. But yeah, it just doesn't, I don't know. I got to see this guy. Like, I can see the scenario where this thing is just going to plant on a point and it is virtually immortal. But I could also see it just dying in a volley. Your opponent pushes up for a turn and, like, I don't know, or backs off for a turn, they wear off, and then they're right back in the fight.
I think so. First, I need to share a fun coincidence, which was recently Eric Cake in the Discord asked if anyone had any good ideas for Phobies, for future Phobies, and I told him we totally need a scarecrow that works like Smiley, where if you attack it, but instead of disease,
I think I remember seeing that.
Debuffed.
Yeah.
And he's just smart. That's a good idea. And I was like, heck yeah.
Winky
and
face.
Then,
That seems like an all right idea.
So I'll say first, like, I'm definitely biased toward liking this because
Fair.
I've wanted this idea in the game for a long time. I love debuffers.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
a
I like
heavy
it.
debuffer player.
Yeah. But is this
and-
the debuffer well, it's the debuffer you wanted. Is it the debuffer you needed?
I'm not so the thing about about something like Stabby is this. Um, I don't play a lot of dimensionals. I'll lead with that. And the reason is that part of the dimensional's power is in its last act death damage.
Yes.
And anytime you have that, that means that your opponent is controlling that damage and not you. You can't force your opponent to kill something.
Right.
And so, similar with Hexy here, I can't force my opponent to attack this and receive the debuff. And so, for me, that's what makes it really hard to judge. Because you're going to have to shove this into your opponent's face and say, hit it! I dare you! Hit it! And kind of like Happy, like, what if they avoid it? How strong is it if they avoid it? And if they attack it, how do you calculate the impact of that? I think it's gonna be a tricky phobia to use well.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely one that I plan to utilize and I'm excited by.
Yeah, I think this guy, my first thought was just parking him on any of the, well, the same sort of things you would do with a Stabby or other turret phobias. Park him in the middle of those pseudo Coliseum maps like Biff's Room or something like that. Just dump it in the middle where they can't not interact with it, either by accident via AoE, which this guy also could, like 200 on most AoE phobies is like a 50% damage reduction.
Yeah, that's half of Klepto.
Exactly. That was what I was thinking of. Or like in his damage is just slightly. That's the part that kind of concerns me. I don't know if it's too low that you can just eat it. I mean, taking 600 is still significant. So
yeah.
I want to see this guy in action. I do think it has a lot of potential. I'm just not 100% sure whether you can ignore it and like it's the last thing you kill.
Yeah, I also wonder. I don't think you can ignore it because 600 is a lot.
Yeah.
I don't think you can use it as a turret in a traditional sense. 300 damage times 2, 600. That's actually 50 short of killing Cowbell. So this cannot really control space and take out panic points. So I think this is going to be more of a, instead of a turret competitor, turret replacement, I see this being more of a mid-game pusher that you use as part of a coordinated team push. And at that point in the game, people have like Hematic Ginsting, they have Klepto out, they have Hevo 3.0 out. In that sense, he contributes as both a consistent attacker.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
You're happy to get the damage. You're not relying on it to carry the game, and that debuff really comes into play. I would be also he's an interesting kind of weird counter to Hercules. And because Hercules has the 3-tile hit, right?
Yeah. And that guy is now out long enough that it should be on its rise up for people that have access to it. It's about that point where people have probably leveled it enough.
Yeah, mine's like 17 or 18 right now, so I'm starting to use it.
Right. Yeah, I could definitely see what you're describing definitely makes sense, and I think it does make more sense than as a traditional turret. The anti-AoE plan is probably the most appropriate one. You just death ball up and then make something happen.
The other thing I've been hearing is people are optimistic, and I don't know if this is, I can't vouch for this because I haven't seen it myself, but they like it as a counter to Inoculus. Because Inoculus, the thing that really is most annoying about it is that it loves to just do these little harassment hits.
Yeah.
And do people really want to do a harassment hit if it cuts their Inoc damage in half for 2 turns?
I mean, that seems reasonable. I don't know how plausible it's going to be to, like, again, how do you... They don't have to shoot it. Like, they could shoot the other guy because they have 1,000,000 range, so...
Right.
I don't know. That one seems like a stretch. But maybe on, like, the big house or something where you just park him in a choke point, and it's like either you interact with him or he's going to walk up to you. Pick one.
In my imagination, I was imagining Big House because that's a map where I play like a double turret, double lane push kind of strategy.
Yeah.
And it seems like it could work there. Right now I tend to use Blondie, but maybe I'll try using Hexy instead.
Hey, you got 2 more keys to burn on something else, but I mean Blondie has other uses. As always, you always have to keep in the back of your mind, anybody listening or watching at home, that there's always Shove Shark to just drop this guy in your opponent's lap, and it's like, well, you can't just leave him there. The 600 damage will add up, so I don't know. I don't really have much else to add for Hexy. Any other thoughts on him?
I'm just glad he got added. He's interesting. Yeah. He's new. He feels fresh. I actually love a phobie that the community gets split on, because to me that means that there was a new idea added, and you know me, I really value meta diversity. And
Yes.
so anytime there's a new idea added to the game where everyone's like, some people are like, this is broken, others, this is trash, unusable. I'm like, awesome. They put something interesting in. That's what I want most,
That's
you
one
know?
thing you can definitely say about the Phobies community. They're not really shy about sharing their opinions. Certainly on balance, I can tell you that much. That
They
one's
could
for
not
sure.
even have half the comments, and they will tell you every single balance change that needs to happen.
Oh yeah, everybody, believe it or not, there's a lot of experts on the internet about a lot of things.
Trust me, I'm one of them.
Yes. All right. Let's talk about Flail, the Morning Star.
Oh
I like
yeah,
the
so let's
flav text.
good.
So this is the new and improved Eternal Night. Shout out to DT, wherever you are, who used to really make Eternal Night look good. And I personally feel like Eternal Night is better than people give it credit for, but given that people are how terrible people are saying it is, like that may not be much higher. That's a different phobia though. So Flail here is one key more expensive, but it gains AoE and more damage. Now, I think it, yeah, it definitely has more HP. I don't know how much offhand. I want to say it's 550 or 450 on
It's
Eternal Night.
it's 440 more. I have everything up. It's 440 more health, and
Oh,
it's
more. Okay.
160 more damage.
Gotcha.
And it has AoE. So like
Yeah.
from the first thing to note about this guy is like going from 2 key to 3 key. Wow, that's a power jump, right? That's not like a plus 100 health or
Yeah, that's what
minus
we were
100
talking
health.
about before. You can't just go up linearly. You have to
Right.
actually like be more than the sum of the parts.
Yeah.
So,
Um
do you feel that this displaces or replaces Minotaur?
no, because the thing with Minotaur is he has I think he has 1500 health right now. So I think they're
Yeah.
distinct. Where you play Minotaur when you want a melee tank. And,
Mm.
and at this point he's pretty tanky. He can
Yeah.
survive. You can throw him in. And I think most people who didn't like Minotaur before are warming up to him slowly.
Yes.
And Flail he is the proper successor to Eternal Knight. He is a sacrificial animal. And so what you need him for is a situation where you're willing to get 600 AoE damage, then he dies, and you're happy with that.
Yeah.
And for that reason, I think Flail is like I don't again, I'm biased against dimensionals because whenever I see, oh, Flail's gonna deal 600 damage when he dies, you know what's gonna take that 600 damage? It's gonna be a 1 key.
Right.
You know? It's gonna be something that isn't really worth it most of the time.
I would agree with
Um
that. I mean, obviously it doesn't always work out that way, but that is the goal,
right.
clearly. Good. I had a point and I totally
Of the
forgot it, so go ahead.
of the entire set, I think this is the only phobie that I'm kind of I'm not sure if this. I'm not really sure why this was added. It's like the ace of this update
Mm.
in a sense.
Well,
Ace,
I will
not
say Ace
technically a
has been
bad
impressing
phobie.
me lately, so I gotta maybe
Oh,
reevaluate my evaluations.
you're converted,
Well, Ace is like, so he's not interesting, but
right?
like there was one game, I forgot who was, some viewer game, but Ace just went in and obliterated something. Like I was like, my God, just did a gazillion damage. And it's weird because it's like, yeah, it says it right on the card how much damage it does. But
Right.
seeing it happen and it's like, oh, this actually did connect and it only needed to connect once.
Yep. Yeah.
That was
I
the
feel
thing that
it too.
impressed me.
Yeah.
Chat's asking,
I
what about the late game for this? I'm assuming they're talking about Flail, so rather than Ace. I mean, I guess when things start getting super scrappy, it's like, oh, I have 5 keys left. What am I going to put on the board? Flail potentially being one of them. The problem with that is I think you still don't quite get away from the whole they could have some random idiot floating around or put one on the board that's going to deal a killing blow. But,
right.
like, I get it. Sinuses. Yeah. So I did have and I think this really gets exemplified more with some of the other phobies that we haven't gotten to yet, but because this is such a direct upgrade on Eternal Night,
Mhm.
we kind of have to touch on the power creep discussion at some point.
Okay. So how about we save it for Doc Holliday?
That's fair. Because like this is kind of getting there. That's more what I was thinking when when we get to the other ones. So any other thoughts on Flail before we move on?
I think it's going to be hard to find situations from. I don't think he's bad. He seems properly tuned for me.
Yeah.
By the nature of being melee and he's fragile, looking for those situations where you can get that. Here's the thing.
I almost wish he was more fragile, to be honest.
What's that?
I almost wish he was more fragile. The reason I say that is because, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but like if he was more fragile, because at 900 health, it's possible he takes a square hit from a major phobie. Like if Klepto just tags him, and then he gets chipped into range by whatever, and then the one key comes in. Whereas if he only had 400 health to start, he doesn't die to a one key, but then immediately croaks to major phobie, thereby forcing them to eat the damage.
That's been my suggested buff, quote unquote, for Eternal Night for a long time. Is right now Eternal Night has 460 health, and because of that, it's very easy for like Klepto to hit it, and then a one key to finish it.
Right.
And if Eternal Night had something like 185 health, then any kind of AoE would always pop it and drag it in and set it up for a punish, and it would kind of be like what Hexy is doing. It would be an anti-AoE tool that I think would enter the meta. With Flail, yeah, I mean, we'll see. I'll just say I'm not super positive that he's gonna see a lot of play, but I don't think he's terrible.
Yeah, I think he's acceptable, and I could see him showing up in small maps or maybe some other niche things, but yeah.
Yeah, you have to be able to, here's what you need. You need to find a turn where when you play Flail, you are reasonably certain that he can attack once and hit two things. If he can attack once and hit two things, then he's worth the keys.
Gotcha.
If you can't do that, I don't think he's worth playing.
Chat's saying they like the stripes on the art, but that the sound design sucks for this guy. I have not heard him in game, so you'll have to let me know, chat, what he sounds like.
I kind of like his sound. It's like it's basically the same thing as Eternal Night, but like they do with a lot of the reskins, they change the tone, and so it's like a deeper, heavier dragging sound instead of the lighter axe drag.
Yeah,
that Eternal Night has.
That sounds fine to me, unless it's like for you personally, it's like nails on a chalkboard. Like certain sounds just get people, so maybe that's it.
Rusty.
What was that? Oh, Rusty. Yeah, I could definitely see that one pushing people.
I didn't see Rusty until I played this game for like, I want to say it was like 3 or 4 months because no one was using him.
Yeah.
And when someone first brought him up, I was like, oh my God, why does it sound like that? What are you doing to us?
They did that just to screw with everybody. So
he's a huge part of the meta.
Speaking of Doc Holliday, he's our next phobie. So I don't know what order I had these in, but Doc Holliday's actually next. So this is, I'm not going to lie, this thing is horrifying as a model, because I don't know if anyone's ever actually, like you hear people say, oh, root canals are bad, right? Like you don't want a root canal. They're super painful. You got to take care of your teeth, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. If you are unaware and you don't actually know what goes on during oral surgery, I was going to say you should look it up, but maybe you shouldn't, because like you will be horrified, like what they do and the way, like it's gross. So seeing Doc Holliday with the way that it animates and stuff, like, oh man, all I can picture is those images in my head. It's just like,
have you seen his attack animation?
No, I haven't. What is it?
He spits out internal tooth enamel at you.
Oh God.
It's real gross. This guy's in competition with Cluck Norris to me for like the grossest phobia in the game now. Yeah,
but I think Cluck Norris is like off-putting, whereas I'm gonna say Doc Holliday is cringy, but not in the modern sense of the word. It's just like it induces a cringe because it's just like you can imagine the feel.
Yeah, I don't even like looking at him. And then the fact that they made his rope like tooth floss, that's brilliant.
Yeah. You love its little smile.
Yeah, he does.
I
He's
mean,
like
I
his little
do love
goofy,
this
like,
guy. I
voice.
love this guy. It's just I had to get that out there, like the oral part of it. Like, yeah, there's a reason that
Also,
the expression is it's like pulling teeth.
there's also something about Doc Holliday that's really interesting to me, which
Yeah.
is I think he is only. I could be wrong on this. If you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he's only the second phobie in the game that has a voice line. He says "yippee" when he pulls someone in. Gravedigger has that like he throws out sometimes when you click on
Hmm.
him.
I'm trying to
Uh,
think. Does anybody else say anything? All right, chat, you're on it. Chat is usually good for
and
this. Chat, YouTube, let us know. I feel
what's
like there's
interesting
one
too is
more. I feel
Butcher
like
also has a voice line.
who does?
So this Butcher, who's also adding this update, also has a voice line. So we got two new phobies that have voice lines,
Mm.
and phobies does not have many voice lines. So it's really interesting to me.
And chat, don't say Lippy. Lippy doesn't count. Don't say Lippy. We get it. He's a phobie. Cupcake. Well, if you count the whistling from Muffin, but I don't think that's quite the same.
Are Chomp, are you able to put up other phobie cards to like compare to this one visually at the same time or no?
Yeah, I could pull them up
Yeah.
while we're talking. What do
Can
you
you put
want me to
up
pull up?
you put up Graylien and Heartbreaker next to this?
Yes. So go ahead and start since you can see it. I'll pull those up. You talk to us about the this phobie.
Yeah. So Doc Holliday is definitely some major power creep in the game. I am shocked that this got put in the game. People can't stand a tractor, and their solution was to give a tractor +1 cooldown, which impacted nothing except for making it slightly less annoying. And then they gave us Doc Holliday, who has more. He has Heartbreaker pull ability in the sense that he's 2 movement, 3 range, just like Heartbreaker. But whereas Heartbreaker has to wait 2 full turns before you can do his thing, and then he has a 3-turn cooldown, Doc Holliday somehow, at 1 key less, has 300 more health, 100 more damage, only 1 lock, and only 1 cooldown. And the only loss is that Doc Holliday's pull leaves the phobia you pull in front of him, and Heartbreaker gets to choose where they go. And that is an important difference, but I still think that this is an insane difference. Heartbreaker is one of my favorite phobies in the game. He was one of my first ultra rares. Breaks my heart that I can't play him because he's garbage. And this is like a slap in the face almost to be like, hey, you can't play Heartbreaker? Here's Doc Holliday. He's pretty much better in every single way, and he's 1 key less.
It's the internet classic. It's a slap in the face. What was you said Heartbreaker, and what was the other phobia you wanted to have up here?
Graylien.
Graylien. There it is. Sorry, I lost it as soon as you said it. Oh, I forgot that they. All right, that'll take me a second to pull up. But yeah, I agree with you, and this is where I was going with it earlier about the power creep. I don't. So, oh, go ahead.
Okay. No, you go. You go.
I was going to say that in general, just to preface the discussion, inherently power creep isn't bad, and I know there's people who are already starting their manifestos about why I'm terrible, but they probably already had those anyway. Power creep isn't inherently bad, but it can be bad. It can be too much or too little for that matter. Since Heartbreaker, and for the life of me, I can't find. I have the Graylien image, but I'm struggling to find it. That's why I'm getting annoyed myself. If I can find it, I'll put it up. But
if I paste it in our private chat, would that help you?
Yeah, I can download it. Well, actually, that'll end up on screen if I pull it from there. I'll find it. But the issue is, and here's the Graylien as I'm saying it. So the challenge with the power creep is this. Power creep is going to happen in games, and if the baseline thing was intended to be like the rudimentary, the intro, the whatever, like it was never intended to be a long-term thing. Okay, that's fine. Like, I get it. But as we've discussed on many occasions, it's intended, as far as I know, that all the phobies should be viable or at least reasonable. And both of these phobies that we have up here alongside Doc Holliday right now have for a while kind of been lamented as like, these guys kind of suck. At least
Yep.
Graylin is like I've seen some fringe cases where it's like, oh yeah, only Graylin could have accomplished that.
Yep.
But is there a reason to use either of these other two phobies now that Doc Holliday exists? I don't think so.
It,
Like this is
in my
true
opinion,
power creep,
absolutely
right?
not. Especially, think about this, okay? The one usage that everyone got excited about for using Graylin was that it countered Furnace Face because he swaps into the
Yeah.
smoke. Well, Doc Holliday pulls them completely out of the smoke. So he's even better at the one thing that Graylin was actually legitimate for.
Yeah.
But here's the important thing I think for me. It's Doc Holliday's huge power creep, but he's power creep over crap. So in that sense, I'm not opposed to Doc Holliday's existence, so long as we understand that Heartbreaker and Graylin need help.
Yeah.
Like Graylin, like here's the thing for him, okay? He's a puller, but he's a puller that swaps places with his target, which means that he dies when he pulls, right? Heartbreaker, Doc Holliday, very safe with their pulls. Graylin, he just dies. So why is he also bad at getting a target? You know, what I've long advocated that old switcher you should be a lob attack. That if you're gonna get rid of if Graylin's dying, let him get his man. Especially it's a like a telepathic swap, so it fits him. You know, it makes sense.
Yeah,
And for
I don't think
Heartbreaker,
these are
okay,
solved by well, Heartbreaker could be solved with numbers. Different
yeah,
numbers on different parts of the card. Graylin, I agree with you, kind of needs more of a rework focus because if you just give it a billion numbers, then it's like, all right, I'm just displacing melee stuff essentially with
hmm
this. Like I'm becoming a cheaper Smother Mother is what it boils down to at that point. Um, but I think
Smother Mother still pulls safely, and Graylin never will. That's kind of what
yeah.
I was going for.
Well, yeah, but my point is like if you gave it 1,000 more HP, like yeah, it'll probably be good, but that's not healthy necessarily. So I think
No, if you
a focus on the
okay.
like reshaping Graylian's function to a degree is better. Whereas Heartbreaker, I think you could probably just give it numbers, either shave some of the warm up cooldown / give it more stats, and it's probably fine.
Okay, so I have to take a strong stand here,
Oh,
and I'm saying this as a Heartbreaker lover. I love this guy with all my heart and soul in this game. I think he is the epitome of badassery to me, along with Boss.
mm,
Shadow dude who just like snatches you up and you're just fucked.
yeah,
I love it. And he is balanced by the lock and his health. That when someone plays Heartbreaker, they are effectively saying, I'm going to play 2 turns, 8 keys down. Because this guy can't fight. He has garbage stats. And when people play Heartbreaker against me, that's always my solution. I just dive. I don't care what's going on. I don't care how many traps are on the board. I don't care what my team is. Everything is going immediately into your face. And that's the effective counter Heartbreaker. It makes having a 5 reach pull fair and balanced. And the same thing for his health. It's the fact that you have to search out these safe pulls because he's fragile that balances him. I love all of Heartbreaker's stats in terms of balance. The only thing that I can't stand about him is the cooldown. It's a 3-turn cooldown. And the thing to me is an 8 key is a carry. When you play Dozer, Boss, Beauty, anything like that, the expectation is I am playing this with the goal to wipe the enemy team. This is going to carry me to victory with team support. And Heartbreaker, because he only gets a pull every three turns, after waiting 2 turns, he can't do it. He can't carry. Even if you get an 8 key with him, remember he's crap by
yeah,
himself without his pull. So now you've just evened it out. If you get an 8 or a 9 key, you've basically evened the match out after waiting that 2 turns, and now there's another 3 turns before he can do anything else. My personal preference is to see his cooldown go down to 1, and for him to be a dedicated carry concept, just like Boss, Beauty, and the rest. And the other part of that is, for one more key, you get Akira. Akira has 1,600 health, I think, off the top of my head.
yeah,
Am I
that
slightly
sounds
off on
right.
that? I'm gonna double check because I don't want to. Last time I said one number wrong, like the whole Discord wouldn't let it go. Okay, yeah, he's 1600 health. He's 400 damage, but he's ranged AOE, and his pull is global, all allies, all enemies. With and Akira has the same lock and cooldown.
Yeah.
So you get an amazing fighter with a much better initiation tool, same cooldown and lock for one more key. There is zero reason to ever use Heartbreaker in this game. So
Yeah.
to go back to Doc Holliday, is he power creep over Heartbreaker? Yes, but Heartbreaker needs major help.
The only thing that I wonder in this case is, would we be better off if the game was built around Heartbreaker the way it is, rather than pushing everything to Doc Holliday's level? And I'm undecided.
Opinion, it's not. And the reason is this, okay? There was a time where I used Heartbreaker in every single match when I was a new player. And I am someone who, like, you know, in some people are character specialists, right? They like to specialize in a character, go super deep with that character, and be known for playing that character. And that's how I saw myself with Heartbreaker early on. I thought I'm going to be the Heartbreaker guy. And so I played him in every single match, even small maps where he's completely unplayable. and here was the problem. I had to stop because I couldn't open all of my jacks every day. Because he's so slow that you have to wait so long that most of my matches were just passing and waiting for 3 more turns to go by so I could grab something. And I hit a point where I had 50 async matches open, Chomp, and I was not opening all 9 of my jacks every day or hitting the tier cap.
I agree with you on that front, but I think that starts to stretch into issues with non-game related systems. I mean, they are game related, so I guess not directly game related. Again, forgive me, my sinuses are killing me, so I have to keep pressure on my one eye. So the reason I say that is, like, if we had a perfect world where you get all of the phobies, or, you know, the economic system wasn't quite as punishing or significantly less punishing, so that you aren't in that scenario just because you want to use Heartbreaker. The game, and like I said, I'm undecided. I haven't really put enough thought into this as to if the current iteration of Heartbreaker was the baseline and the game was built around not just Heartbreaker, but other phobies at that level, would that game be more fun? I think I agree with you. Well, I 100% agree with you that, like, in the current state of things, and I think the game is no longer the game of phobies that it was 2 years ago when Heartbreaker first released. Like, it's just not. So
yeah,
the evolution is fine. I just don't know that and I started this out with saying I'm fine with power creep. I don't know that I like the idea of power creeping these things like this, not just because we don't know when or if we will ever get an update to any of these other phobies, but also the game is now just different. So
yeah,
we'll have to see. But any other? Oh, God.
Okay. I wasn't blessed with Doc Holliday in my packs. I was I had asked Aircake to give me Chuck, and he had a typo, and I got Cluck Norris.
Oh no, instead. Not like this! Not like this. For anybody, before somebody jumps in the goddamn comments, yes, it's a joke. Holy crap! I know someone's gonna freak out and be like, they could just ask for phobia. Like, someone is gonna go ballistic.
Yeah, I'm just joking. Yeah. Of course.
Like, I hate that I have to put a disclaimer on that, but I know people will freak out.
It's a good idea. It's a good idea. I should have put a disclaimer on it.
I'm about to make a joke here, people. It's gonna be a joke.
I could tell you right now, what I've been doing with Doc Holliday is because he is definitely the phobie that seems the most blatantly power crept in this set.
Yeah.
Is I just keep imagining situations where I have 7 keys and I play Doc Holliday, right? I'm like in my matches, if I'm in a match and I have 7 keys, I think to myself, what if I had Doc Holliday right now? And I fail to see how this guy will not just be absolutely crazy in this game. He is going to need nerfs at some point. I think what I think is kind of cool as an idea is because he's just like Heartbreaker, and since he's 2 movement, 3 range, Heartbreaker has 2 lock, 1 cooldown. Doc Holiday has 1 lock, 2 cooldown. So you can go for the I need it now solution, but then it gets powered down for 2 turns, or I can wait 2 turns, but now I have a consistent polar concept, and they have some kind of like juxtaposition between when you might use each one. That's kind of how I'm vibing with this, at least.
Yeah, I don't mind that idea. We'll see how they change it down the line because I agree with you. On its surface, I struggle to see how this guy is not going to immediately shoot up to the top of the charts of everybody's wine list.
Yeah, and a little bit of lore too. Eric Cake designed this guy, so he got to. This is his creation, so you can blame him personally for
All right.
that.
Note to self: Eric Cake loves teeth because the tooth has teeth. Jesus,
He had told us that he had to completely refactor the polling algorithm for this guy because before Doc Holiday, the Phobies code did not know how to handle a 2-tile pull. It was a 1-tile. Every other Phobie is a 1-tile pull. Heartbreaker places them right, so he had to refactor it to algorithmically calculate what tiles to slide along as it gets pulled in. So,
interesting. That's kind of cool. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is kind of cool.
It's cool.
Shout outs to him for putting so much effort into this concept. It is a cool concept.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't have issues with the concept. It's just we'll see how this one goes. We'll see how this one goes. So moving on, we got Butcher, who actually might be like, I don't know why. I just really like this concept. I also think the name is really cool. It's something just very simple, but like it immediately evokes what you should be concerned about. But this is our new 8 key that people were, I don't know. I had a lot of people say that it replaces High Five, and then a lot of people saying it replaces Chuck. And like, I don't know if they were mixing them up or what.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't, right? I mean, like, to me, okay, when I tried to build a statistical model to estimate how Phobie key values are derived, Lob ended up being worth about 1 key.
Yeah, I can see that.
And Chuck is basically Butcher with Lob. So I think it fits. The Knife to See You has an awesome animation where the blade like spins on them. It has this cool just sound effect. I love seeing that go off. I also like the way this guy looks. At first, when we got the spoiler for him, I thought of Chrono Trigger, and you played Chrono Trigger, right?
No, I haven't.
Oh my god, that's a classic RPG. Okay, well, there's like a big red robot named Gato in it,
Yeah.
and he looks like a big robot, and he looks a lot like this guy in terms of themes. Eric Cake says he named this ability too. Knife to See You.
I was gonna comment that like I love the name, so I feel like now I'm starting to notice a pattern with the Eric Cake names. So.
Hey, what's the it's not even being brilliant puns.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like that's it.
Okay.
Like I want to say the best puns are the ones that came from Eric Cake.
Well, recall previously when we got Frosty, its ability was called Blizzard.
Yeah.
And my immediate reaction was, how is this not called Freeze Ray?
Yep.
It's throwing ice, and it's a Stingray, Freeze Ray. It's sitting there in front of you. And Eric Cake had told the Discord that he actually wanted it to be called Freeze Ray, and he got shot down. So the fact that they went back and renamed it Freeze Ray, and that Eric Cake's getting to name abilities, tells me that someone on the team realizes that the community loves puns, and Eric Cake has a talent for it.
Everyone loves puns. If you don't, you're lying. You're lying. But anyway, let's get back to Butcher. So the 700 damage is pretty significant. Like, and this is because it's 1 range. This is still effective, or excuse me, it's a 1 movement. The 3 range. I agree. The lob matters. I feel like. I can't decide if the 8 keys is significant enough to like really disrupt things, because there's tons of games I've watched and played where it's, oh, I would love to do this, but I only have X -1 keys.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Butcher does fill that role where there's a bunch of maps where he will be completely reasonable and beat Chuck for one less key.
Yeah. Yes. If you have open spaces, right?
Yeah.
You don't need the lob.
And I think I like having the options of these things where they are slightly different at the different key intervals for a variety of reasons. But I think it's healthy to have this. And I don't think that it is. And this is the part that it's not just the Phobies community, gaming communities in general. They love to say things are just better or worse, strictly better or strictly worse. And that is rarely true. Like, yeah, generally 60, 70, 80% of the time, something may be better or worse than another game component. But for it to be strictly better, where it is literally better in every scenario, that is super duper rare. And I don't think that's the case with this.
I agree. I think if I compare him to Oopsie Baby, who's a 7-key 3-ranger, Oopsie Baby has 400 less health, the same damage, and it has the damage debuff instead of the damage burst. So that feels like a reasonable like upgrade to me, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I think my only real concern about Butcher balance-wise, first of all, he's clearly amazing. There's no world in which this guy is not great.
Yeah.
What's if we were talking about Phobies like a year ago, I would probably say he was perfectly balanced. But we are in a Chevelle meta, and if you Chevelle this guy forward and you knife to see you into attack, that is 1100 3-range burst damage, which that kills a tractor outright.
Yeah,
right.
That's a big deal.
So with this, yeah, it's a huge deal. And the thing is, I think one person might say like, "Yay, something to kill a tractor." But it's like that Simpsons episode where they have some kind of foreign animal, and so they bring another foreign animal to hunt it down.
Yeah.
Then that animal overpopulates. You have to bring another foreign animal in.
Isn't there a nursery rhyme where it's basically the same thing? Where it's like an old lady swallows a fly and then like swallows a spider and then swallows a mouse and then swallows it's just like.
I don't know why I swallowed that fly.
Yes, that's it. I was trying to. I'm like I know this tune, but I couldn't think of it.
I don't know why I made a tractor.
Yeah. So we can make Butcher, so Butcher can snipe him. Something like that.
Yeah, so if this guy needs adjustments, my feeling is that knife to see you might need to come down in damage. Otherwise, I think he's pretty much fine.
Yeah, I do really like this guy. Chat's saying that the animation for this guy is really cool. I have to imagine it is. There's no way it's not. There's a thing about meat cleavers that I think goes back to Warcraft 3 with the abominations of when I started like thinking they were like cool horror weapons kind of thing. Because there's just something about meat cleavers that it's just like, yeah, there's no two ways about it. Someone's about to have a bad day.
It's like scythes, right? Like actually farming equipment, but are so cool looking that somehow it's become iconic in every kind of war fantasy thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are war scythes, but if you look up what real life, if you look up what a war scythe looks like, it is not the thing the Grim Reaper carries. It is not. It doesn't look close.
Right.
So there's your homework, Jack. Go look that up. All right.
Or like a halberd.
True. All right. So let's move on from Butcher. We have Billy, who's actually this is not the deal we were going to talk about later, but it is the deal Phobie. The reason that it is not the last one is because the last one has some other complexities. So, Billy has 3 actions, and similar to some of the other Phobies, people were, I don't want to say apoplectic, but there were a few that were, obviously. There's always a few. But people were going bananas over this guy.
Yep. Yeah, they were.
I can't really blame them, and there was a clip that was posted to my Discord, which I'm sure was posted to the main Discord and everywhere, where watching him move up, shoot something, and then walk away is hilarious because we were just a week ago jumping through hoops with Shove Shark to push Inoculus up to do the same thing, and this guy does it on his own.
Yeah, that's exactly. And but you can technically move up and do 2 attacks, right? From
Yeah.
2 range away. So it's almost like he gets to phantom himself in every turn if he wants to.
I was stunned when I saw this thing. I was convinced. I would have almost bet money that this guy was going to be one movement.
Yeah, that was a common thing, and I had this weird feeling that it was going to be 2 movement for some reason, and I don't know if I'm glad that I'm right in this case, but
Yeah,
um,
it's tough. I mean, he's 6 keys. So, like, you're at that threshold where you got to really justify the amount of keys you're investing here.
yep.
Is this. And part of the damage is fire damage. So, it is an inherent nerf to his damage output because you're not stacking the fire up.
Yep.
And the damage is low to begin with, but it's still 3 actions. I don't know. I got to admit I'm concerned initially.
What about you? What about him specifically has you concerned?
So let's say you get power up on him or a power up. So Gonzo's what? 3, it's not 375 anymore.
250.
250, yeah. I don't know why I was thinking 375. I had that number stuck in my head. So that's 600 damage spread across 3 targets, assuming you hit 3 targets. You're probably only hitting 2 because you most likely had to move in. 1700 health is all right, but I imagine he immediately gets targeted down just because people will freak out when they see him. I do think that the poke part is probably the most concerning thing. Given the numbers he has, he might be fine if you just walk up battle lines and attack each other. Obviously, add some additional help, but the ability for him to poke so much and seemingly easily could be an issue. But we have talked about that before, where I think having these harass phobies might be necessary in order to combat certain strategies, like a lot of the turtling. And, you know, in order to break some of these stalemates, well, he can get in, cook something, and then walk out. So your opponent is forced to interact with you.
Harass 3 rangers. I've seen in matches because he has 4 reach. You go into, you hit, you go back out to. I've seen matches where he goes in and out and just keeps poking Innocuous.
Yeah,
Innocuous
exactly.
has to go in or keep getting harassed. He's extremely effective as a harasser. I want to. There's a couple things that I think are worth mentioning with him. One is that this guy is a 6-tile Volt Snipe, which I know has made some people unhappy. I'm not super thrilled about it. But I think 6 keys for a 350 damage 6-tile Volt Snipe, that's pretty sad. And if that I'm really have something that's that close to death, then I think that's okay with me. In terms of his damage output, so if he hits the same target 3 times, he does 850 damage. If Klepto hits the same target twice, it does 800 damage. So he gets 50 more damage, but Klepto's also getting the AoE. So I feel like, actually, because that AoE is so potent, I actually feel like Billy is a weak, straight-up fighter. And I think when you play him,
you need to. That's why I was saying you need to spread the damage. Like a single target is not. It's a damage nerf. The fire damage.
Right, and if you buff him, if you buff Billy, and he gets 3 attacks with Gonzo, that's 1600. Klepto will get 1300. So still pretty comparable. Plus Klepto gets that AoE.
Yeah.
I also think that there are a lot of phobies that don't care about harassment. I watched a pretty good match. Oh God, I actually forgot who it was between. I apologize to these players, but it was Aetherius and someone else. And Aetherius was bringing out Billy and doing a lot of ranged harassment, and it was looking kind of nasty. And then his opponent brought out Quagmire.
Yeah.
And Quagmire.
That was exactly what I was thinking of when you said things that don't care about harassment.
Exactly. And so I think my hunch, I could be wrong on this, but my hunch is if people are a little more creative with some phobies they don't regularly use, then I think Billy's harassment will be fine because Bluelian cancels this guy out completely, right? Bluelian's a 5 key, Billy's a 6 key. You toss a healing spa on whatever Billy's trying to harass, it cancels out all of Billy's harassment completely
Yeah.
for 1 key less.
I think.
So I think.
Oh, good.
But
I was going to say
I was
that
gonna
I
say,
think that the introduction of an additional harass phobia like this is healthy because the innocuous example you gave is exactly what I would want him to do. I will say I don't, although I'm concerned just because 3 actions it's a new thing basically. Like it's not a new mechanic because actions have been here. We've already seen that they can be different, but it's just okay. We got to experience the new thing. I refuse to believe that they didn't test the hell out of this. Is what I want to say. Like the numbers are the way they are because they 100% said 3 actions is a lot of actions. What do we need to do to make this work? And
Eric Hickett specifically said that the reason we didn't get balance changes this patch is because with these abilities they put in, they spent extra time balance testing them to make sure they weren't doing anything crazy. And I feel like they did a great job. Outside of Doc Holliday, who is a little scary, I feel like they nailed it personally.
Yeah, I think that the more we're talking about it, the more I think Billy will probably be okay. But he is exactly the sort of thing that I think is good to be one of the promo sort of phobies because it's like, oh my God, there's 3 actions. But it's not the end of the world. The only thing that I will call back to that you mentioned was the vault sniping and the range on it. While it's baseline not as bad, we had lots of issues with Cupcake before it got its warm-up because it could walk in and then do something. So you can have those buffers or whatever sitting there to vault snipe something that realistically used to, but at the same time, I don't know how that happens if you didn't already use the buff on the thing that's already in range. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think like one solution for this could eventually be something like, in Magic the Gathering, some creatures, everything has summoning sickness when it comes out, and it's not allowed to attack anything. And some things have haste, which lets them attack as soon as they hit the board. And maybe if it gets to a point where it's bad, maybe some phobies need the inverse of this. Maybe they need summoning sickness, which just says this is not allowed to attack anything the turn it comes out. Because I know everyone hates that with Hevo Plaid too. That this guy can just come out with Chevelle on the board. He has 6 reach, AoE. You pop a Cupcake on him. He just one shot like Attractor, Innocuous, whatever. And how are you really playing around that in a small map? The answer is you're not.
Eventually, we will hit a point, and this is probably pretty far out, but we will eventually hit a point where there are enough Plaids, there are enough Billies, there are enough whatevers where like your entire team for a game can be all of this. Like
could be.
We'll eventually have enough Vault Snipers to play Team Vault Snipe, and that's probably when what you're describing has to exist in some capacity. But
it's like how my collection finally got to the point where you saw that match where I played like Team 3 move, where I had like a Clobster, I had a Mr. Tramples, I had the Speedolas. I saw this. It's all melee. It can't control space, but like it's just so fast. It's hard to keep track of.
Yeah.
And I could see something like that over time. If we keep getting things like Billy and Plaid, Snowball, Jar Cannon, all that kind of stuff, maybe eventually we'll have just like people who play nothing but Vault Sniper teams that are really hard to keep track of or something.
We'll worry about that in 2037.
yeah, not the biggest concern right now.
Yeah.
So I feel like they did a good job of them. I'm excited about them.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see how he plays out. But speaking of interesting, let's talk about our last phobie, and that is Undertaker. This is another one that had people up in arms initially at the description, which is what those teaser things are supposed to do. And the reason why this guy was at the end is because I had to put both up there because people may not know how this guy works. But in order to use his welcome back, spends keys to revive a dead friendly unit on an adjacent tile. Revived units may use 1 immediate action. Each unit can only be revived once. So I still have questions based on this ability.
Well, I can
Namely,
answer.
well, like how long can the corpse be there for?
Oh no, it's not like that. It's like imagine if you had a second vault, but that vault only had your dead stuff in it.
Oh, okay. That so it's adjacent to. It's not like go find where your phobie died.
No,
Go summon
you
the.
get to choose where it summons. So like
Okay.
the use that I've seen for a couple uses I've seen for this guy, and I think he's really cool. And again, shout outs to Aetherius. He is doing some great testing with these new guys. He likes to use blue, and blue is a phobia that does not get a lot of use. He's not bad, he's just niche and hard to make use of. And then with Undertaker, he can bring back blue anytime he wants. And that means that Undertaker gets to move two, summon blue in front of him, blue gets to move one tile, and then AoE debuff. So that's a 5
Pretty big
reach
deal.
AoE debuff out of nowhere. And that's really, and he's won matches with that where he just like drops the blue out of nowhere on someone with Undertaker and boom, you know?
I could definitely see that. It's funny you mentioned them because that's whose games I was watching, and I saw this guy show up like every single game. Now, for 9 keys, this is the kind of 9 keys you need the big splashy effect for. And
Yep.
this, I think, is justifiable. I think the blue use case and similar ones are where we're going to see it the most. I'm confident I'm going to get a bunch of viewer review games where it's like, oh, well, I summoned my Akira a second time, but like, that's 27 keys.
Yeah, well, and I think
Like,
a lot
that's
of
a
people in
lot
the
of
community are
keys.
down on this guy because they started with those fantasies, and it's not going to happen. It's you're not going to do it, and if you do it, you're going to lose. It's a terrible idea, right?
Yeah. I mean, is there somebody will, there are a lot of games of Phobies played. Somebody will win. But like, yeah, your real usage for this is probably at most you're going to burn or spend like 3 keys. So like 12 total kind of thing. I think that's going to be stretching it. Like you get blue back, you get one other thing back. I don't know what the other things would be, but like that's what I'm expecting.
Glob is great because the phobia gets to move once. So, my experience with Glob has always been if I can dive someone and Glob kills something, I just won the game. There's no way that they can handle Glob and the rest of my team. Either Glob's going to run a train on everything, or they're going to kill Glob and then the rest of my team obliterates them. And I have seen a match where Aetherius plays Glob early, then plays Undertaker. After Glob is dead, he just Glob. Guess what? Glob's suddenly right in front of you and just ate something.
Dealing with 2 globs is actually really difficult.
Right?
Can we make
a
it not
Cerberus
cost
right in your
keys?
face?
Get out of here. Oh my god. Sorry, I'm
Or
looking
double
at chat.
cupcakes. I think one reason the community tends to be down on this guy right now, and I think it's unjust. And I think part of the issue is that
There's no way this is a phobia that people will figure out quickly. Like it's just not going to
I
happen.
agree. I wish I had him because I would definitely dedicate some time to loving this beautiful blue boy.
Do you
blue
think
purple
this
guy.
guy is impactful enough at level 1 that if you got him tonight, you would immediately start playing him on ladder?
I would against people who I'm stomping already for fun.
But you don't think like if you went up, and I'm not saying like, oh, you're going to lose game. Like obviously you're going to lose games as you're learning it, but
Right.
against somebody who's Sum of All Fears 3, do you think level 1 Undertaker reviving Glob is sufficient enough? Or do you think he's just going to get incinerated?
No, it's not. Because that's what I was going to say about people kind of missing the boat on this guy is people keep looking at him purely from a utility standpoint, and they're just looking at the revive. 9 keys to revive. He has good stats.
Yeah.
Hevo 3.0 has 2200 health and does 450 damage. It's 100% AoE. That's a huge difference. But numerically, Undertaker is a solid phobia. This is not a pure utility phobia. This is a hybrid phobia. You're playing him expecting him to not carry, but be a significant contributor to the fight. And that means that at level 1, it's a lot like a level 1 Akira. I did it a couple of times and won with it, but it was pretty hard,
Yeah, I could see that. I'm looking forward to this guy. Like, this is the one I'm most interested in out of the entire set, other than probably Butcher. Just because I think Butcher's just really cool. I think the phobia itself is really cool. Like, I saw Knife to See You, and I'm like, all right, this is my favorite phobia. Like, I just laughed like an idiot. But Undertaker, from a gameplay perspective, I think is the most interesting. And I'm excited to see what people do. Like, there's going to be cool stuff from this guy. There's no way there's not.
The only thing I don't love about this guy is his name, Undertaker. Undertaker is an undead name to me, and this guy is. You're not an anime watcher, right? So you've never seen like Princess Mononoke?
Correct.
Oh, that's a shame. You should watch that. That is a really cool movie. But this guy very much strikes me as like Japanese forest spirit or like some kind of like Native American spirit walker thing. This guy does not look like an Undertaker to me.
I mean, I get why, because he's digging up the dead, essentially.
Yeah, I know, but they're like I feel like he could have got a name like Shishigami, which is like a Japanese spirit or something like that. Or let's see, Shishigami are forest spirits that are personification of the forest. Kodama are tree
Kodama
spirits.
would have been something that I would have expected. Its code name was Ultimate Being. Interesting. You know what it reminds me of, though? In Avatar: The Last Airbender, the one spirit that steals faces, it kind of reminds me of that.
What is it from?
Avatar: The Last Airbender.
I'm trying to blank on that.
You don't remember Aang?
I remember Aang.
Yeah, there was an episode where he couldn't make a face because then the spirit would steal your face. But and the spirit would wear the faces like masks.
I know it now.
Yeah.
Ko, the face stealer.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, chat's calling it out. Yeah. Like, there's something about it that reminds me, or one of the spirits. This reminds me of one of the spirits, and I don't remember which one. Maybe I'm thinking of that one because like that's a big episode, but it's actually a different one. I'm not sure. But yeah, I think Kodama would have been a good name.
Have you seen Undertaker's attack animation?
Yes.
Yeah, he rips off his own face or removes the mask. It's kind of hard to tell exactly, and like this spurt of energy just comes out like it's like he's Cyclops or
that.
It's like
that just reminds me of the Mortal Kombat, one of the Mortal Kombat 3 Cabal fatalities, which is. It's not that close, but in that fatality, Cabal because he has this respirator mask on, he takes it off, and because he's so scarred from what caused him to have the respirator, he screams at his opponent, scares them, and their soul literally jumps out of their body and runs away. It's a super stupid fatality. But that was what I was reminded of also when I saw the animation for this guy.
He is so cool. Eric, if you can convince the devs to give him like a cooler, fancier, mystical sounding name, that'd be cool. Because Undertaker, it just doesn't sound right. I think of either like Gravedigger, some kind of undead, or I think of the wrestler.
Exactly. I was kind of thinking when we saw the name before we saw the models that it was going to be like an undead humping a tombstone or a casket on its back kind of thing. Like that's what I was thinking of, but I like this one, but I agree there's kind of a dissonance between the two, the name and the model. But
Western themed names.
Fair enough.
Well, I mean, the Old West was about battles between Native Americans and cowboys, cowboys versus Indians kind of stuff. I don't know, what are some... I know almost nothing about Native American mythology.
You got to look up Doomtown, the card game, because it is literally a card game from the 90s that's based around the Wild West. But there are factions, because it's like the Weird West. So there are factions with magic and stuff. So I'm sure there's inspiration in there. You just got Billy the Kid.
I got a timeout
No.
from your bot for posting a link, Chomp.
Oh, yeah, we'll have to allow that. Womp wah. You got timed out of the chat. The co-host gets timed out. All right. Any other thoughts or wrap up on the phobies before we move on to maps?
Nope.
All right. I think the phobies overall big hit. I'm looking forward to them. We'll leave it at that. We're definitely over.
Yeah.
We're definitely going to go over our targeted time, but that's okay.
I'll say this. This is
Yeah.
the first set we've ever had where none of the phobies look bad. Right?
Yeah.
Like, the closest is Flail, which seems highly situational. In every other update, we've had at least a couple of phobies where I just thought they're like Whiskers tier. I was just like,
Oh, yeah.
what is this? How did this happen? You know?
Yeah.
They did a great job.
I think these are
Everything
all reasonable at the very least. You could definitely take these and be like, okay, I can work with this.
Yep. And one thing that drives me crazy with the phobies community in general is a lot of people complain like, oh, the game's so stale. The meta's always the same. And they release new stuff and like, oh, power creep. How dare they? I'm like, you can't have it both ways. To change the meta, you need things that compete with the existing meta, which means the devs need to take risks, and they might be a little too strong.
Because I promise you, if they make them bad, they're not going to see play. Like that's how
like
it works.
Speedolic.
So let's talk about maps. Where are these new phobies going to be fighting? The first one up is Lonesome Town. Now, I'll be honest, I didn't get a chance to look at these ahead of time. This is a large map as far as I could tell. Only 2 vaults, 5 panic points. It does feature some poison tiles, but this isn't going to be a toys in the attic situation.
Oh, I've had heart rushes here that end on turn 11, I think here, which is that's counting opponent turns.
Wow,
So my turn
yeah.
6. What the big thing to notice on this map is the heart placements. Notice that the hearts are across from the opponent's keyhole.
Yeah.
So you can, like, if you want to play a turn 1, if you're player 2, you could do a turn 1 Hevo here, double move it, and the next turn it's wailing on that heart, and player 1 needs to defend their own heart from this lone Hevo that's just wailing away on it. I wouldn't do that personally. I'm just giving an example of how open this is. I think this is a map that people are going to complain about a lot. It's very hard to defend on. It's very intense. It's definitely oriented toward double heart rushes, which I think aren't great from a game design perspective. But I also think that a lot of this is because maps don't scale with phobie level. And so phobies get plus 3% stats per level. If you're like me and your phobies are like level 20 something right now, that's plus 60% stats. The hearts are still the same as they were at level 1. So my phobies kill the hearts 60, not 60% faster, but you get the idea. 60% more impact. And you could just blitz down hearts in seconds sometimes, but it's not legitimate. And so I think in some sense, the impression of this map that people are going to get is going to be a false one. And I think this map is going to be good once they fix the map scaling issue.
Yeah, that's an ongoing thing that's going to lurk in the background. Chat's pointing out a few different things supplementing your idea of trying to push hearts. I like the idea that you can either threaten it early or rotate to it quickly. Rotate to try and push onto your opponent's heart and try and take it down. I fully expect this will play out like the common assumption for Moai on ladder, where it's just people ignoring each other / someone going, oh no, I actually need to defend, and just being way too late. Whether that's how it works out. What was that?
That's pretty much been my experience.
I don't know if that, like, to your point, I don't think that's how this map will play if we had proper scaling or you play all level 1 or something like that.
Yeah, I like the map. I would rather see maps where matches end quickly than where they take 40 turns at least. Like if you're gonna go one way. Now, of course, not like Mazio Fob, where it was completely uninteractive.
Yeah.
And each player was like, oh, are we playing together?
Yeah, I don't think this is going to be that level, but I do like I agree with you 100%. I'd rather see this sort of map, and I'm glad that they're taking this chance.
Yep, it's definitely an engaging map. All of my matches, like I'm ending them quickly, but they're only ending quickly because the game doesn't really have consistent tempo in maps. A lot of players, even in Some of All Fears 3, you'll find some players just don't have an understanding of tempo.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so when you
tempo
get
is
a
always
high tempo,
complicated for people to like. It's not an easy concept to grok mid
it's
game.
not. But like I was pointing out in chat the other day, um, I was shocked last month when I did my async matches. I was facing Some of All Fears 1 players who were still passing on turn 1, which to me feels like it's inexcusable
Yeah.
to not understand that passing your first turn is the worst turn you can have in Phobies for your first turn. There are no maps and no situations where the correct decision is skip my first turn. But somehow there are people who have made it to Some of All Fears and are still doing that. And so I think this map will absolutely annihilate those players.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope it helps them learn a lesson, let's just say.
I do wonder if the devs are doing that intentionally, creating these things such that, oh, well, they're going to, you got to learn the hard way, I guess.
It's weird because they will create these large maps that are very tempo oriented, and then we get small maps where it's like, oh, I guess we just
Yeah.
wait for this for super team, and I don't understand why they are so inclined to do that. Really.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I'm not sure either, but we can definitely beat that one to death another day. So next
yep,
up is Tombstone, which is another large map, this time with 4 keyholes. We got some conveyor
yep.
tiles, we got some stims, and we've got 5 panic points once again. The abyss tiles are kind of interesting here. The hearts are significantly more protected than what we were just looking at.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, this one's, I'm getting the Coliseum vibe of like, all right, everybody get in here and brawl it out, kind of.
Yeah.
But
What I think is really
okay.
good. No, if you finish your thought.
Well, I didn't really have one. I was going to say something about like pushing people into the abyss, but like I feel like you got to jump through way too many hoops to make that happen.
I generally don't like maps with 4 vaults because I feel like when you have 4 vaults, it's easier to shore up positional mistakes on both sides.
Mm.
You have snowball, plaid, jar cannon snipes to contend with from more space. It's harder to make positional choices. But my experiences here have been very good so far, and I think part of that is these conveyor belts are they are 2 steps from the vault, and what that means is any one mover gets a boost to the
Yeah.
center.
That's
So
a good point.
On this map, I've been trying a very strange opening, which is as player 1, I actually do 4 1-keys. I play Boomer and Tickles to capture the 2 middle peripheral panic points,
Mm-hmm.
and then I play Slayer and Numbskull and get them shoved in right behind them.
I like that.
And I have 2. Yeah, so you just get 4 very tanky 1-keys, and then I followed up with some heavy firepower, and it's been very successful at controlling space. And I can see this being a map that encourages like Cerberus, Glob, Hydra, all those kinds of things. The stim pads have been very impactful so far and fun to play around. The fact that they're
I like that they're
right
not
in the
tucked
middle,
away. Like that they're not
yeah,
all the way in the corner, but still covering something relevant. This is, if you want them, you're going to have to fight for them.
right. And because of that too, because of where they're positioned, this has been a map where I have felt like it's actually not a great idea to play Innoculus on, because Innoculus can't get into. If you look at all the center positions you'd want Innoculus at, they're all also within range of the stim pad, so it's
Right.
more vulnerable to burst damage and things like that. So I was a little iffy on this map, but once I played a few matches on it, I thought, you know what, this has some juice, and I've been having uh my matches. I've been doing heart rushes or like panic point rushes, like in the mid teens and stuff like that here, closing out at a decent pace. So, but it's
That
still early, and people have to catch on too.
Yeah, I
So
mean that's good to hear, and that's very promising because my initial reaction is where the hearts are positioned. I was very concerned about that. Like it we've talked about it before. I like the idea of having all three win conditions accessible, whether it's
Yeah.
panic points, it's just heart rushes, it's actually phobie fighting. Because otherwise, when you remove one of those elements, it A, shrinks the cast that's viable, and B, tends to induce certain strategies where, like, oh, well, if I can't heart rush and we're just fighting over the panic points, everything slows down. Because most
Yeah.
people don't just, well, maybe not most people, because I've seen a lot of people just feed their phobies into a wood chipper. But generally speaking, people don't want to just march their team into yours to die. And they inherently are more cautious. So then if it's only panic points, not the heart being exposed, you get some risk there.
Yeah, definitely.
But I'm glad to hear that it's doing well. So we'll have to see how this one
Yeah,
plays
so far.
out. So what about Showdown? Because this one, quite obviously a small map. 3 panic points. This feels like an... I don't know. My first thought is, oh, look, another Gravedigger map. I don't know if it actually is as I'm looking
Yeah,
at it,
it
but
is.
great.
So I don't know why this keeps happening. I
Is it
am a
always on
Gravedigger
this
lover.
tile set? Maybe it's not always on this tile set. I mean, there's that. No,
There's
there's
a
definitely
lot
a,
of them.
because like
It's a
I
small map
immediately
issue.
thought of Center Stage, which is this tile set also.
Uh-huh.
I kind of wish that all the bad maps were one tile set, and we can just be like, nope, you're not allowed to do that. Don't do that one anymore.
So this is almost a great map. You have to play Gravedigger. It's mandatory. And like most maps where you have to play Gravedigger, that means it turns out to be a slow match. What I think would be really cool is if those 2 bottom walls were gone and there was like a very high intensity bottom lane that led directly to the heart that both players have to fight for to defend and attack the other heart. I think that would be so much more exciting than what we have right now. I do understand the interest level in the sense that this is the first time we've ever had a heart that you could, how do I say this? It is possible to remove one of those bottom walls and play a lobber on that panic point and just wail away on the enemy heart with complete immunity, right? That's possible. Jar Cannon can't even really do much because the AoE on the heart hits Jar Cannon as well.
Right.
So we've never had anything like that. That's pretty interesting to me. I've had some matches here that are pretty fast because my opponent didn't play Gravedigger basically, and I was able to get all 3 panic points and Wail on the Heart. But I've gotten a couple people who understand that they need to play Gravedigger, and those are feeling like other Gravedigger mandatory maps where, hey, guess who's coming next? It's Innocuous, and so on and so forth, and not much is happening.
Sometimes
So
I wonder if these maps would be improved if we just had more terraformers.
that's why I've been trying to lobby for Scrub, my fan-made 1 key. It's a 1 key that sacrifices itself to blow up a wall. And I think if you could do that, turn 1, play Scrub, blow up a wall, you could still maintain a high tempo match here because you're not devoting 3 full keys to removing a wall, you know?
Yeah, it's an entire turn on this map in order to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, it's a Gravedigger map. Whatever. That's it. I don't care. That's all I gotta say. I mean, look, I'm fine with those strategies and those maps existing, but it does feel like we have an overwhelming amount of those maps at this
My
point.
feeling is like, so one thing that developers have mentioned before is they don't want the game to get solved. I've heard that from multiple people on the team before, and that's a good thing to worry about, right? Because a
Yeah.
strategy game where you've solved the strategy is not going to be a game very much longer. People aren't going to play a game that's solved.
Yeah.
And to me, if it's a Gravedigger map, you've just pushed it that much closer to being solved because you've just decided that everyone's going to have the same opening.
Yeah.
You know, if everyone has the same opening turn, that means that all the turns are going to be based on that opening, and now you're that much closer to knowing it. And I think all the maps that players feel like we solved, like Crypto, Lights Out, things like that, they are all solved because they are all Gravedigger maps where nothing happens,
Yeah.
and I think that's something that they should try to avoid personally.
Yeah. I mean, I can't disagree at this point. If nothing else, like I said, even if you're okay with the idea of that concept existing, don't we have enough of those? Like,
Yeah,
I,
exactly. It's
I think we can try a different one where we say, well, this is the opener you do on this map every time. Just
it's
make it
like
something
shirts
other
for
than Gravedigger.
Christmas.
What was that?
It's like shirts for Christmas. You
Yeah.
might need some shirts, but when you open like the fourth box, you're not. Oh, shirts.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey.
Hold it up and smile for everybody, and it gets real
Yeah,
awkward.
exactly. New maps. Smile for everyone.
Yep. All right. So last map in rotation this time that it's come in. There are other new maps, but these are the ones that are playable, at least the time of this recording. Hopefully I'll get this up to YouTube before the other ones come out. Is Dark Manor, another small map, disease tiles and lava. More exposed hearts. They are vulnerable to 3 rangers without having to like get too close, obviously. But have you played anything on this map yet?
Yep. Yeah, I've had some turn 13 heart rushes on this one.
I can see that being the case, yeah.
And this is strangely a map where I actually love using Slayer. Um, you what I usually do is I play a triple key opener as player one. For me, Sarkassin, Tickles, and Slayer. Turn to Bowmangles, and then Slayer and Bowmangles march along the bottom perimeter on those disease tiles, and together they kind of lay siege on the heart, and everything comes in to support them. And I've had some amazing success on this because while that panic point by the heart is actually pretty hard to defend because there's a wall behind it,
Yeah.
and you cannot move through your own heart, and then there are the lava tiles. So I have found that even I've had a match where I put Gravedigger on that bottom panic point, and I walled out the opponent.
The heebie
And
jeebie
so
special.
the heebie-jeebie special, that's right. It's really effective.
Yeah.
I've yeah, I've used what's his name? Sabian on this map. Where I
I
from the
could see
keyhole
that,
I
yeah.
double move to the disease tile, and Sabian goes to that panic point, and he has like 22,000 something health. He's hard to kill, and he's just gonna saw out that heart, and you can't really dive on him easily, right? So my experience on this map has so far has been pretty good. I think the only downside is that because there's so much disease, I feel restricted in that I can mostly only play mechs.
I was
And
about
that
to
means
say
that
that. That
huh?
I was about to say, do you feel that this is going to be a locker room funk situation?
It's not quite that bad because it's so aggressive, and I've used a good number of non-mechs. It's definitely like it's like a let's say it's like a 60% mech situation. You know, like you can have a couple like two if we're thinking about 5 phobies on the board, 3 mechs, 2 non-mechs. That's kind of where I am with this.
Gotcha.
I wouldn't go any further than that because otherwise you end up in a situation where you want to attack but you don't want to land the disease tiles. And the disease tiles, sometimes you can step on them, it's like no big deal, but you don't want to play on the assumption you're going to be walking into the disease tiles, right?
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense. This one, I mean, I think we have kind of a clear ranking among the maps, with one of them being the worst. This one is probably number 3 for me right now. I think the 2 large maps are way more interesting, which goes to your point earlier that
Yeah.
I'm not sure what's driving. There are clearly specific tenets for what needs to go into a small map versus a large map. And I'm not sure why they are the way they are. Because we keep getting Gravedigger maps.
Yeah. This is now I'll say Gravedigger. This is what I think Gravedigger should be on a map. If you play Gravedigger on this map, it's really good. But I haven't ever felt like I needed to play Gravedigger. In fact, what's really cool is if you count the squares and the hexes, if you remove the bottom wall and you count from your keyhole to that bottom panic point, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tiles. So if you wanted to be like crazy, you could break that wall, and then much later you could move a tramples right to that panic point by their heart. If you just want.
I
So
mean,
I think. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say like there's the strategy that you solved it. Map is solved. We're done.
It's I have not I haven't passed any turns here, I think, yet.
Okay.
I've consistently played for tempo and not been unhappy about it. And I think part of that is on a lot of these maps, Innocuous is the problem. And Innocuous can hang out somewhere where it can cover the center and your safe panic point. And if you do that, it's very hard to do anything at all, right?
Right.
And if you notice, the tile that is best for covering your panic point and the center panic point is a lava tile.
Yeah, and I'm glad that they did that. That needs to
Yeah.
happen in some capacity when we get the inevitable electrical tile or something. Lava is probably the best because it's just plain damage. Because if we get an innocuous equivalent that is not mechanical, and then we get an electrical tile, we're just gonna be like, we switch to the other one and do the same thing. So I'm glad that it's a lava tile and that it's going to be pressuring. You can't just park your Innocuous there and control the game. 100% agree with that. Overall, I'm looking forward to seeing how the maps play out. I definitely can see some crazy plays and some crazy games coming in for viewer games and Monster of the Week. So we'll have to see how this plays out. Like I said, for this one, I'm a little concerned about the locker room funk effect. But I can definitely see where it wouldn't be as prominent.
You can play around it.
Yeah, exactly.
Now for people with smaller collections than me, I can see it being a problem, though.
Well,
if you're a newer player, I can see it being a problem.
That's going to happen no matter what.
We have to keep in mind that there's only a 50% chance that you get Bomangles. If you're someone who started with Stabby, I can see this map being really frustrating.
Yeah, and it is something that for larger map design, like philosophy, the new players are very important. You can't have them coming into the game and being like, well, none of my stuff works, because they're not going to stick with the game.
Oh, speaking of new players, I noticed a major oversight from the Phobies designers the other week. Or rather, I was informed of it.
Oh, yeah?
Brought to my attention.
What's that?
So we have events that are based on particular phobia types: dimensional, undead, monster, mechanical.
Right.
You have Gravedigger, that's your guaranteed undead. You have Jar Cannon, that's your guaranteed mechanical. You have Razormouth, that's your and Ginsting shortly after, those are your guaranteed monsters. There's actually no guaranteed dimensional phobia. You can have an account with 0 dimensional phobies. It came to my attention because there was a person in the Discord who had just started playing Phobies. Last month was Dimensional Month, and they were complaining that they can't participate.
I never thought of that. That is wild.
Right? I didn't think of it either until they brought it up, and then I went back through my notes and I was like, oh my gosh. You could have an account with 0 dimensionals starting out. How frustrating would that be if the game is like, it's Dimensional Month, play all your dimensionals and have fun, and
you literally can't.
You literally can't, which means you can't buy the VIP pass either, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, because that's the only, if it's like the dimensional event, well, they always have 2 parts to it. One is play the thing and then kill something. Could be the same thing, could be different. So I guess you could, because you could still complete the event, hypothetically, but it's way harder.
Yeah, this player claimed, I didn't look at how many matches they played, but they said they'd been playing every day. They said they were only able to get to level 2 in the event because most of their opponents weren't playing any dimensionals. And when you think about it, who can you start with as a dimensional? Eternal Night?
So, yeah, I mean, I was going to say it would have to be Stabby, but that does introduce the problem of what we were just discussing with the other map with,
right.
That's a problem in some scenarios. So what do we have? We have a 1 key, a 3 key, because it's, like you said, Razormouth, Jar, well, Gravedigger's 3. I was going to say, is it actually costed 1, 2, 3, 4, but that's already broken because we have 2, 3 keys.
I have the full list somewhere. Let's see. What phobies do players start the game with? Everyone starts with Erratic Gravedigger. That's plus Murderwing. That's 3 undead. Jar Cannon, Razormouth, Sheeping Gas. Jar Cannon's your mech. Sheeping Gas and Razormouth are both monsters. And then you can get Cowbell or Contortio. You can get Eternal Night or K9000. Gesundheit or Cassowary. Stabby or Bomangles. Unbearable or Primate number 9, Stairmaster or Hevo, Alligator or Fish Tank.
I didn't hear a lot of dimensionals in the ors.
Right?
Like, they
And
just, your chance of getting a dimensional seems shockingly low.
it is extremely low. I think they should take a phobie, a common or uncommon, and just add it to new player accounts.
Yeah.
Bloat would be like a fine choice, or you could give them Bacula. New players are always complaining they don't have many one keys. Just throw every new account
Just
some
give
kind of
everybody
dimensional.
4 1 keys to start. Give them Cowbell, Razormouth, Bacula, and can't think of it.
Contortio?
Yeah, Contortio. I couldn't think of it for a second. Just give them the 1 keys. Like,
It's problematic. So anyway, I hope they address that just for their own sake. Obviously, it doesn't really affect me because I have everything I could want pretty much, except for Chuck.
right.
But it's yeah, design shortcoming there.
Fair
Oh
enough.
my gosh, what is this jump scare? This $50 jump scare on my screen, Chomp.
Yeah, so Karst had brought this up offline that he wanted to, because we were discussing, like, what are the topics, what do we want to talk about? Obviously, we'd be talking about the patch, and clearly Phobies and maps are the big things, but there was an addition which is a new exclusive starter bundle, and I clearly just took this screenshot right out of the client right before the stream. So 50 bones, and we've beaten to death the so much dev time went into making this offer. Interesting. So we have some commentary.
But next time, I feel like you need to ask some players too, Eric. This is my one complaint with the update. So a little background for anyone listening. There was a great video on YouTube called "Let's Go Fishing." Let's go whaling. Let's go whaling.
Yes.
And it's a video about how you get money from free-to-play players in mobile games. And it's an awesome video because it taught me a ton that I understand about mobile games and freemium models. And also, it's blatantly honest. And one of the things it talks about is when people pick up a free-to-play game, they think to themselves, it's free, therefore I'm not going to spend any money. But the game needs money to survive, and that means it needs to convince people to spend money. A lot of games have an offer that is just ridiculously good, too good to confuse, to refuse. Excuse me. In the game that I played before Phobies, which I spent like $1,000 on, which is like 3 times my Phobies spending. So as a reference, I'm willing to spend much more on Phobies. I just haven't had the incentive yet. In this game, I thought I'm just gonna play it free to play. And then there was like some $10 offer, and it was worth like $100. And I got baited right there. And I thought, how can I pass that up? How can I pass up times the normal value? So I bought it. And when you buy something for the first time in a free-to-play game, a switch goes off in your brain that converts that game from something you do for free in your whatever time you have to this is a hobby that I spend on. And the idea is that now that you've flipped that switch successfully in the player, they will now be willing to spend more money. I have 3 problems with this deal. The first is that it pops up on the first day they play, right? After they start their first match, this pops up. That's people haven't figured out they like the game yet at that point. They don't need those kinds of jump scares, I feel, right away. The second is that $50 is a lot to devote to a game when you're just starting out and you're not sure if you even like it yet. And the third is the deal gives you 5 days to decide. 5 days to spend $50 for 3 times the value. I feel like that's just a big miss. I think this should give people more like 2 weeks to decide, and it should be more like $20, which is absurdly low. But again, the goal is first of all, this costs nothing, right? This is pretend money that's being given out. So lowering the cost it's not like the game's losing anything necessarily. If you gain them as a spender, the long-term gains from that are, immeasurable. You could be getting a new whale from that. If they like what they get and are excited, they might spend more. I think $50, most people are just not going to bite on this, I think. It's just too much to commit to too soon. Only 5 days playing into the game. You know, that's how I feel about it. This was
There's
the biggest disappointment, and I
yeah.
have to say, I'm not spending on this personally.
Yeah, I'm not either.
Because
I've put in the money I'm going to put into Phobies at this point. But so this is not targeted at me. But I will say that like when I first started out with Phobies, I knew I was going to put in a couple $100. And
yep,
like if this popped up, I 100% would have snap bought it when I first started. Within hours probably. Now, I think there's a valid argument to like maybe changing the time frame instead of being X number of days or weeks or something, like Y number of games, so that like after you've played 10 games, this shows up, and after 50 games, you can no longer get it, or something like that, maybe.
I think the research is something like most whales and mobile, and of course, I don't know as well as the
mm,
actual developers do, but my understanding is most whales don't whale on games until about a month of playing. And the last game I played, I knew people who were dropping like over $1,000 a month on the game that I played with them, but they didn't start spending until like 6 months into the game. It took like 6 months before they said, "Okay, I'm taking this game seriously. I've been playing it for 6 months. I'm dropping some serious bucks on it."
yeah,
And um, and I think that's why I try and always say this, because I try and advocate for things like a pity timer, no tier cap, and stuff like that. Because I really feel like the way for Phobies to grow is by understanding that the real monetary value that can be gained is in keeping players around longer before they decide, whoa, I've been playing Phobies for 6 months. I'm okay with spending some money on this game at this point. I play it so much. And instead, when you tell them, hey, guess what? You played your first week. Now here's this guy who's double your level. Don't you want to spend on the subscription pack and double up? Even if you do that, you get to grind for another 6 months before you catch up. Double thumbs up.
yeah. I mean, I'm definitely the wrong person to ask about this stuff because my habits when it comes to these sort of games, and Phobies included, are wildly different than how most people conduct themselves, whales or
You're
otherwise,
willing to
I think, for
spend.
this stuff. I'm willing to spend because I generally know when I start playing. I already know that, like, I don't even start playing the game unless I'm already intending to spend hundreds or thousands of hours in it. And obviously, if I'm going to do that, I'm willing to spend money on it because I'm going to get the value. Like, there's no point in trying to avoid it at that stage. So I'm not the right person to ask for this. The timing and the specifics, that's for market researchers that, like you said, from that video or from other market research that you can find some publicly. Some of it is, there's a reason people pay marketers and researchers. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not all available. That's something that only the Phobies team is going to know. Like they can see their own metrics. I don't know how much of this is in general, not just the starter bundle, but all of the pricing. Like this is what our prices are and this is what they're going to be because we said so. And they're going to be like that forever. Because I've said on many occasions that I think 100% of the prices in Phobies could get halved and forever. And then like
Mm-hmm.
the sales go lower. And it still might be pushing it for some people. I don't
I
know where the breakpoints are for they need this much price to ensure that they're paying the bills, they're paying their people, that sort of thing.
me, there's like a mismatch between the Phobies economy and the Phobies gameplay. Phobies, what I
100%.
love about it the most is that I think it's the only strategy mobile game I've encountered that is 100% deterministic. There's no RNG at all. And as a chess player, I love that. I love that aspect.
Absolutely.
And then you have an economy that is 100% non-deterministic, complete RNG. So you
Mhm.
attract one kind of player who is instantly repulsed by the economy because it disagrees with their like moral fiber or their like their personal tastes. You know what I mean? And I think like what you need is you need a pity system. You need because here's the thing. I have seen many people post on Reddit and say, I just did the $100 coffee deal I didn't get a single ultra rare. Fuck this game.
Yeah,
And I'm not necessarily saying that everyone should get an ultra rare for $100
I think they should.
exactly.
I think you should
Well,
get two guaranteed, personally, but that's just me.
maybe, but I think the feeling is this: it's like chickens. Okay, if you put a chicken in a Skinner box and it pokes its little beak on a little button and a seed comes down, it'll keep poking. And if you change the configuration and a seed only comes down sometimes, the chicken keep poking because it'll have a seed come down here and there. But if you make it stop or you make it so inconsistent that seeds are hardly coming down, the chicken will give up on the button.
Yeah.
And I think that the feeling that I get is here's exactly how I feel looking at this deal. It is effectively 11,000 coffee for $50 to me. I'm cool with that. That's about half off. That's about what is valuable to me. And then I imagine the scenario where I've spent $50 and I don't get anything. And that makes me so upset to imagine that I can't click the button, even though I would like to. I would like to click this button and buy this pack and support the game, get something new and cool. But I see I'm a pessimist. I always see the worst possible outcome. And so I just imagine losing $50 and getting nothing. And that will make me so upset, I will probably not want to play Phobies anymore. And I think that a lot of people don't have that level of foresight. I'm not trying to like brag here when I say that, but they go through with it, buy it, and then quit because, or they'll say, I'll never spend on this game again, right? Because I just lost $100 and I got nothing. You know,
it's funny
and
because
no
like
way...
while I 100% agree with you, because I am in the same sort of position. Like what I do is I figure out the math. How much do I need to spend to get everything? Now I didn't do that for Phobies because that's just like the let's just say the numbers don't favor the person spending money. But I played card games which have this same distribution model. Obviously, they're packs for over 30 years now. And I can't tell you the number. Like, there are absolutely people who are 100% what you said. I open a pack, I open a box. Like, I bought a box of the newest set and I got Garbo. The hell with this game, I'm selling out. I have known people that have done that. Tons of people. They are dwarfed by orders of magnitude by the people that essentially have a gambling addiction.
Yes.
Where they don't care because all they want is the next pack could be the one. And I mean, that's why you see a lot of regulation coming in, which gets into more topics, but like, I don't know how many, like you're always going to turn people away no matter what you do. But I don't know what the ratio of people getting turned away to people that are staying or are enticed by the way things are set up are. I have no idea. And that I think it would be better if things were cheaper or we got more. Personally, I would rather them be cheaper and even get a little less, just so that the hurdle to get somebody to spend is lower. It is way easier to convince somebody to drop $20 than $50 and $50 than $100. So like, I would rather see all the prices come down, even if the output, like, you don't get as much stuff.
I think it's just about consistency for a lot of people. Like if this were a gambling game, then maybe it would work. But I think it's like how do people feel about the season pack? 168 matches, 6 matches a day. Each match takes, let's say, 15 to 20 minutes. So you're looking at an hour and a half to 2 hours of play every single day, and you can get nothing. And I understand and agree with the idea that the season pack shouldn't always give a new phobie, because otherwise people would get these $100 exclusive offer deals every single month, right? And that would probably break the economy in the long run, and the game would fall hard in its face. But you could guarantee, I think, up through rares every month. And it wouldn't break the bank because you get all of the rares long before you get all the ultra rares, and the people who are whaling, who have the gambling addictions, they're just spending on the ultra rares. I feel like you could give up to rare a guaranteed phobie every month in the season pack, and that fact that knowing spending all that time leads to something would keep a lot of players around. But as it is, I have seen screenshots from new players who got dupes in their season pack, and if I had played a game for 2 hours a day for 30 days, 60 hours, if I had spent 60 hours, and then the game is like, here is your golden season pack, and it's like, some fucking cowbell dupes or something like that, I'm not keeping that game around.
Yeah,
you know?
I think it's just a matter of, because I think you had started out saying that it was expectations, or I forget how you had phrased it, but the commensurate level of effort to pay out. Like, I am willing to go on record saying that I don't think people would care if they got dupes if it didn't take 60 hours. Like the level of investment that you have to make, whether it's financial like we're talking about here, or it's temporal because you're putting in so much time playing the game, you need to get a commensurate and reasonable output from those things. If people never got an ultra rare from 11,000 coffee, it wouldn't feel as bad as long as you got something. Like what is the something? And in this case, if we're talking about rarity of phobies, you kind of need to have the ultra rare or ultra rares, plural.
I feel like it is the ultra rare. To me, it's like Dreadfuls. There's one reason you get a Dreadful, and that is because it has the highest chance of having an ultra rare.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if you buy an ultra rare, what I have commonly seen is people will get an ultra rare, and even if it has like a common and uncommon, the community will say that's crap, because you'll get commons and uncommons from tier packs eventually.
Yeah,
you're getting the Dreadful for ultra rares, and I think, like, let's just say, I'm just gonna say an arbitrary number that I don't necessarily think is healthy for the game's economy, but I'm just throwing it out there. Like every five you're guaranteed an ultra rare. How many people who have been grinding and they've opened 4 Dreadfuls not getting anything? How many of those people are going to be willing to drop $20 for the last Dreadful because they know it's going to give them an ultra rare?
Yeah. No, 100%. I mean, the example I usually give, and I don't remember the numbers anymore because it's been a while since I last did it, but I always tell people, I'm part of the content affiliate program. They give me coffee every month.
Yep.
I get 8,000 or 9,000 coffee. And I've done pack openings. They're on YouTube. You can watch them. And it's 2 years now. I do not have, and ignore the ones from the latest update. I don't have all the phobies.
Right.
I've opened an extreme amount of coffee packs, Dreadfuls explicitly. Imagine if instead I bought all of that coffee and I bought all of those packs and I still don't have it. Like,
I'm pretty sure at this point it's over 10 grand to own everything.
That's
I'd have to redo the math.
But insane when you think about it. Like, and don't get me wrong, like there are gacha games that have worse odds and outputs because I've talked to people that have sunk absurd amounts of cash into it. And we're not saying that Phobies is there, but you don't want to be anyway.
Well, and that's the thing. So here's the thing. It's good that it costs 10 grand to get all of the Phobies right away, because then you leave the window open for whales who come in and say, heck yeah, I'll drop 10 grand on Phobies. I think you want that opportunity and that concept open. To me, a successful freemium game has at least three kinds of spenders. It has your fish, your dolphins, and your whales. And you need different kinds of economic incentives and programs for each of those three.
Right.
Phobies does a really good job, I think, with the whales for the most part, because the $100 offers get snatched up by all of the game's whales pretty consistently.
Right.
And so I think it's succeeding there. And the whales who are willing to will often spend until they have every single new phobia, every single expansion. They'll drop like a couple grand or something like that. Awesome. Um, the dolphins and the fish, I think, are where you just need to. It doesn't need to be to the point where like they are getting everything, but you need to have some kind of eyes on the prize situation where you can say, I know that if I play for the next month, I will get something. Otherwise, people, it's like, would you go to a job every day where your paycheck there was like a 20% chance you got it or something?
Yeah. It's a tough sell in when you abstract a lot of this stuff, like taking it out of the scenario, because the industry does this. Like, this is the way it's done. So it doesn't always feel abnormal if this is all you've ever known. But like I
Yeah, I
said,
think
if you abstract it, it's just like, no, this is insane. Like, what are we doing?
well, I think even in the realm of mobile games, I mean, like take Genshin Impact for example, which is I think is the biggest mobile game, free to play game out there, right? Um, they have rotating altars where you can save up and do pulls, and after a certain number of pulls, you're guaranteed to get the character on the altar.
Yeah.
So you can get like, the equivalent of getting boss. You could save up like 10,000 coffee, and when it's boss's turn, you could get boss guaranteed. And Phobies has nothing like that, right? Though, so even that game, every single super successful game that I have seen does not have a pure RNG economy. It has opportunities to control what you're getting, and it has some kind of guaranteed output mechanism. I'm not sure if I think about like even things like Hearthstone, Magic: The Gathering, which are games where you do get 100% RNG things from packs. Those have dust systems where you can scrap a card and then craft something you want, right?
Yeah.
I am literally not aware of anything else on the market that's like Phobies where you could drop. Like I saw someone they opened 70 Dreadfuls and didn't get Undertaker. And I'm not aware of any other game that is quite that pronounced in its economy RNG.
I'm convinced to this day that the reason they did not launch with a pity timer or anything like that is because they felt that there weren't enough game pieces and that people would stop playing because you got the entire cast. Which
I also feel that.
let's assume that that's true for the sake of argument. Like, let's just say, yeah, they launched with that. That means, or implies, at the very least, that there is a quantity of phobies where they would say, okay, there are enough phobies in the game that if you, even with a pity timer, you will have had to play for enough time / pay enough that it is justifiable for us as the Phobies creators, Smoking Gun, to introduce this concept, because it doesn't matter. Like you're not going to just get everything in a week. It's not possible. Not that you could anyway, but like you're not going to get it
right
faster than is what they feel is healthy.
I totally
What is
agree
that
with
number?
that.
Like what?
There's a okay. So here's my copium: is that we now get an ultra rare every month, and my hope is hoping that they are using that to bolster the URs to a huge number, which will then allow them to implement a pity system which would balance out the potential losses because there are so many ultra rares to get through the pity timer. That's like my low key copium hope with how things have been going.
For me, I'm not even saying new ones, which I think most people are like, that's the implied statement is, oh, this pity timer means I will get a new ultra rare. Hell, I'll take the dupes because you still need levels, and just like make it whatever it needs to be so that you're getting something. Because I think even people that are upset, oh, well, I didn't get anything, if they at least see they got ultra rare dupes, it's like, well, I did get an ultra rare, and my cool toy, because most of the ultra rares are at least splashy, is now leveling up.
I don't. That is the opposite of what I've observed and how I feel. To me, it's Pokemon. And if you're spending money on throwing
that
Pokeballs,
is the primary thing. Yes, I'm not saying that.
Okay.
Like, I'm saying it would placate people. Like, it is at least passable if you get an ultra rare dupe. People would always prefer, like, the gotta catch 'em all thing is why I am of the opinion that if you gave everybody phobies, all 100% of the phobies tomorrow, we'd lose like 70% of the population.
I agree. Because, like you said, there's a ton of research that shows that once people have everything, most people stop playing, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I do believe that. But I think
Yeah.
if tomorrow they wanted to introduce a pity timer, just like make it low or low-ish, and even if the dupes are rolled in, fine. But I don't know offhand how many ultra rares there are. Like you said, even if it was one a month, we're probably well into 2 years at this point of,
Yep.
like, it's still going to take you forever. And for the people who it doesn't, that means that they've already played or put in however much money and time. Like,
Well, yeah, and for
I think
me,
they
let's see,
deserve
I've been
it.
playing for over 2 years now. Um, I have like 20,000 coffee from the offer wall, I think, and I've put in probably around $300.
Mhm.
I'm still missing 20 ultra rares. So what's the math on it? If it's 20 and it takes 5 to get them, and they're $20 each, that's 20 times 20 is 400 times 5. That's $2,000 for me to top off my collection. Do I have that right?
I mean, that based on those numbers, yeah.
Yeah, assuming I don't buy anything. If I just bought the coffee straight up, it'd be $2,000 to for me to finish up my last 20 ultra rares. As someone who's put in about 320,000 offer wall coffee. Oh, I won a contest too. For that was 8,000 coffee. Um,
It's a lot of time and effort. And I feel like at this point, if you're still playing the game this long, once a month or once an update, something, give us something.
yeah, I don't. And that's like I said, I don't think I should get. I don't think my season pack should guarantee me an ultra rare.
Mm.
You know, um, because otherwise you get into a situation where, let's say I have everything, and they release the exclusive offer. The logical thing for me to do is to never buy that and just wait 1 month, right? So
Yeah.
I think they can't do that, and I wouldn't want them
Well,
to
that's
do that.
part of why
But
I was
trying
thinking
to
the dupes earlier, is because then it alleviates that scenario. Like, yeah, you might get it, but probably not.
You know what? The thing about dupes for me is like even if it's for an ultra rare, it's probably for like my Leshy or my new Cluck Norris,
Yeah.
or something like that. What I really want, I know we've talked before, is wild cards that
Yes.
can be applied to anything. If the scratch cards that were dupes weren't random but were instead wild cards, that would make me feel a lot better.
Yeah, I think that's
Because then I'd be like,
reasonable.
oh, now that new Billy I just bought for $100, this Dreadful didn't give me anyone new, but it gave me 20 ultra rare wild cards, and now my Billy's 2 levels higher. That's exciting,
Yeah.
right?
And the agency that is handed to people because of the wild cards, I think, is a big selling point for it. It definitely gets people on board because it's like, well, I chose that. I didn't just get hosed.
Yeah, and also the game just right now it has a critical design issue where even after you max a phobia out at level 30, you still get dupes for it.
Yeah, that's a problem.
I remember Hoploy had showed he had like one card that was maxed and he had like 1,000 dupes just sitting around for it.
That's a problem.
Yeah, it's a problem. It's a problem for like 1 or 2 players, but
I mean, we'll all get there eventually, right?
we'll see. Yeah, I mean,
2050.
let's see. I think give me a couple more years.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Karst. I think we went over. Well, I know we went over, but I think we covered everything. Was there anything else you wanted to throw in about the update before we close up shop?
Yeah, I really want to say thank you for the developers taking the time to make the album cards level 1 stats. That is
Ooh,
something
that's a good call. Good call.
like we know the game is not exactly booming financially. They're not making any money off of taking the time to do that, but it
Yeah,
helps
that's
so
100%
much.
a quality of life thing that they just straight up
Yeah.
didn't have to do.
Oh, and have you experienced the next button for async matches?
No, I don't play async. Not
Oh,
anymore.
you
But
should.
I did see that, and I'm like,
Yeah,
that is a great thing to add because I do remember that it just being a pain in the neck, and like that
it's a
100% helps.
it's cutting out a couple taps every turn, and it's
Oh,
definitely made
50,
my experience more pleasant.
yeah, with like 50
I would
games,
like
that
to.
adds up.
I would like to see it changed so that once you have no more matches, it becomes like a start button to just start a new match. Keeping people like in that, it's like doom scrolling on Reddit or Twitter or something like that. Keeping people just tapping the next and new match button
Yeah,
could be beneficial for the game, I think. I would love to see that, but it's a very nice. Those are two very nice additions that I love to see, and I'm glad to see the team. I think like there's so many quality of life things that the community wants,
yeah,
and I totally understand that they can't just abandon all revenue making priorities to make my hopes and dreams come true. But if they can do like one or two every major update, then we'll get there eventually, and I think it just makes everyone happy.
100%. Yeah, I'm glad you brought those up because that it is worth calling that out. And shout out to the team for that stuff, as well as the whole
Yeah, sure.
update. I am looking forward to all of this stuff. I mean, we had our complaints about certain things, but overall, again, I think they get a very high grade from me. I mean, it's only been what 2 days, so maybe next week we'll go. Oh no, this ruined everything. But I'm gonna bet that's not the case.
Yeah, they do ruin things. I mean, sometimes like Chevelle and Phantom, they did ruin the game in a lot of ways when they first came out.
Mm.
But you know what? It was also a really exciting time for everyone, and a lot of people talked how fresh it felt. Now it feels worse than before. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, even if it's going to be worse in the long run, it's okay to have these experiments that don't turn out.
Yeah.
Otherwise, how are you going to know what to do? You know,
Plus, the
you
team
can't
was
know
very
until they try.
responsive with that scenario. So I think if something comes up, like if Billy turns out to be a problem, just it's the first thing I
Yeah,
thought of. Like, I'm sure they will address it and address it quickly. So I'm not worried about that sort of thing.
yeah, I agree. I'm looking forward to Cluck Norris getting a total rework and becoming amazing.
He's going to get voice lines and make Chuck Norris jokes. That's going to be the update. I really want that to happen now that I've said that.
I'm
And I
actually surprised.
know. What was that?
I'm surprised that Cluck Norris, like his attack, he waves his arms forward. You
Uh,
know, but I'm surprised he doesn't have a roundhouse kick.
oh my god. I'm just imagining the model doing that. Like I want it to be like it has to be ridiculous. Like like he sprouts more muscles on his leg as he's doing it or something that like they weren't there before. But
Yeah,
anyway,
they should have named his ability Master Baster.
exactly. I feel like that one probably will never happen. Like that's a change that won't
No,
happen. But
that's good. That's a little too far, but I can. Anyway,
Monk ass. All right, let's close it up. Thank you, Karst, for coming on. Thank you again, Devs, for giving us this update to talk about. But we'll be back when there's more Phobies news to talk about. So for now, as always, everybody, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And tune in next time
thanks
for
for
more
inviting me.
random thoughts. Oh, no problem, Karst.